Auditor General Kimi Makwetu has urged all stakeholders delivering services to citizens to be accountable for their role in the process. The Auditor General made this statement during the release of the Critical Service Delivery Audit Reports. The AG reported that 109 health institutions and 10 medical depots were visited over the past 2 years. He reported that 63% of health institutions do not record patient details or the medicines dispensed to them. He cited poor communication as the main reason behind the misalignment of the pharmaceutical budget and the actual healthcare needs of the people. Makwetu emphasized that there should be consequences for non-performance in the process of service delivery.
The processes that were put in place with regards to the planning of these programs was largely deficient, to the extent that many plans were developed. However, they were not carried through, or they were not developed sufficiently to respond to the needs. And you'll see that, for example, with pharmaceuticals, the issue of developing budgets was never based on the burden of disease as well as the requirements of infrastructure. It's always based on budgets that are a percentage increase from previous years, for example, which means that you will never have sufficient appreciation of what the quantum of resources from a planning point of view that are required to deliver on healthcare, among others, the pharmaceuticals. The budget that was communicated about the extent of work that was going to be done was about 3.7 billion, but, or rather in Everton, there was a budget that was placed in terms of communication of what was going to be covered for the urban renewal. But according to the test that we have done in the audit, there was only about 260 million allocated across the whole period of this particular budget. To the same extent, if one looks at Winterveld, there was a 4.3 billion budget, which means that you communicate what you are budgeting, what you desire. You communicate your aspirations to the community as to the quantum of the full extent of the projects that are going to be implemented. Because certain budgets that were communicated initially were not honored, some of the positions that were earmarked for people to do some of the monitoring work between the projects could not be made available. And when we looked for documents for some of the projects, as well as the technical approvals and certificates that were delivered by the contractors in some of these projects, many of them were nowhere to be found because there was no proper monitoring of the deliverables in all of the projects.
Well, the Auditor General strongly also pressed home the point that there should be consequences for non-performance in the process of service delivery. Also, that leadership needs to prioritise planning and monitoring of projects and appropriate allocation of resources. Overall, he saw the lack of oversight, funding, effective project management as stumbling blocks to delivery. The Auditor General also lamented the fact that health departments overspent on pharmaceutical budgets by using historical info instead of the actual healthcare needs of citizens as a guide.